My family mocked my poverty, unaware I paid their bills. "You'll never be anything," my aunt sneered, toasting behind me. I stayed silent. This morning, they regretted it. Their calls begged for forgiveness, but I'd moved on. Their mockery built my strength. Now I'm successful, and they're nothing. My revenge is my triumph, and their regrets are empty, man. Where do I even start with this mess? Picture this. You're sitting at your family's Thanksgiving table, listening to your relatives trash talk you like you're not even there, while secretly knowing you're the one keeping their lights on. Wild, right? That was my reality for 3 straight years, and honestly, it nearly broke me before it made me stronger than ever. So there I was, fresh out of college with a marketing degree, and about as much direction as a GPS with dead batteries. Living in this tiny studio apartment that smelled like old pizza and broken dreams, working 2 part-time gigs just to keep my head above water. One at Target during the day, folding clothes and dealing with Karen customers, and another doing freelance social media stuff at night for local businesses who paid peanuts. But hey, peanuts still count when you're broke. My family, though? They acted like I was some kind of failure magnet. Every family gathering turned into this twisted roast session where I was the main course. My cousin would roll up in his shiny Honda Civic acting like he was driving a Tesla, talking about his finance job like he was Warren Buffett's right-hand man. My uncle would crack jokes about how I was still shopping in the clearance section at Walmart. And don't even get me started on my aunt. That woman had a PhD in passive aggression and used it like a weapon every chance she got. The thing is, they had no clue what was really going on behind the scenes. None of them knew that when my grandparents were struggling with their mortgage payments, I was the one quietly sending money orders every month. When my aunt's electricity got cut off because she spent her utility money on a weekend getaway to Atlantic City, guess who swooped in anonymously to get her power back on? When my uncle's car broke down and he couldn't afford the repair, I was the mystery benefactor who paid the mechanic directly. I did all this through different methods. Sometimes I'd call the companies pretending to be a family friend. Other times I'd use online payment systems, or I'd even mail cashier's checks without return addresses. I became like some kind of financial ninja, helping my family without them ever knowing it was me. Pretty crazy when you think about it, right? But here's the kicker. The more I helped them, the more they seemed to look down on me. It was like some twisted cosmic joke. There I was, sacrificing my own comfort, eating ramen noodles for dinner 3 nights a week so I could help keep their lives comfortable, and they were treating me like I was the family disappointment. The breaking point came during last year's Christmas dinner. We're all sitting around my grandparents' dining table, and my aunt starts going off about how young people these days don't know the value of hard work. She's looking right at me while she's saying this, fork pointed in my direction like she's conducting some kind of hateful orchestra. "Some people just never learn to take responsibility," she says, taking a sip of her wine that I probably helped pay for indirectly through the grocery money I'd been sending my grandparents. "They think the world owes them something, but real success comes from dedication and smart choices." My cousin jumps in, because of course he does. "Yeah, like, you've been out of college for what, 2 years now? And you're still working retail? Maybe it's time to get serious about your career instead of just coasting along." The whole table goes quiet except for the sound of forks scraping plates. My grandparents are looking uncomfortable. My parents are shooting me these sympathetic looks, but nobody's saying anything to defend me. And I'm sitting there thinking about how I'd just paid my cousin's credit card bill the week before because he'd maxed it out and was panicking about the interest rates. That's when my aunt delivers the knockout punch. "You'll never be anything special," she says, raising her glass like she's making some kind of toast. "Some people are just meant to be ordinary, and that's okay. Not everyone can be successful." I smiled and nodded, like I always did, stayed quiet, like I always did. But inside, something shifted. I was done being their secret guardian angel while they treated me like trash to my face. Update. Okay, folks, the responses to this have been incredible. Some of you are asking how I managed to help them financially while being broke myself. Trust me, it wasn't easy and definitely wasn't sustainable. I was basically living on credit and side hustle money. Also, someone asked if I ever considered just telling them the truth back then. Honestly, I thought about it every day, but I was scared they'd either not believe me or somehow make it about how I was trying to look good. Anyway, the story gets way more intense from here. What would you have done in my situation? Kept helping them secretly or cut them off completely? After that Christmas disaster, I made a decision that changed everything. I stopped. Just like that. No more anonymous payments, no more secret bailouts, no more mystery checks in the mail. I decided to focus every ounce of energy I had on building my own life instead of propping up theirs. I threw myself into my freelance work like a maniac. Started reaching out to bigger companies, spent my weekends learning new skills on YouTube and free online courses. I was pulling all-nighters, drinking so much coffee I probably single-handedly kept Dunkin' Donuts in business. But something amazing started happening. My work was getting noticed. This local restaurant chain hired me to revamp their entire social media presence. Then a small tech startup wanted me to handle their product launch campaign. Word started spreading, and before I knew it, I was booking more freelance work than I could handle while still working at Target. But here's where it gets really good. Remember how my family was always talking about smart financial choices? Well, turns out all those years of living on nothing and stretching every dollar had taught me some serious money management skills. While they were all living paycheck to paycheck despite having decent incomes, I was saving and investing every extra penny I made from my growing business. Within 6 months, I was making more from freelance work than my Target job. Within a year, I had enough clients to quit retail altogether and go full-time with my marketing business. I moved out of that tiny apartment into a decent one-bedroom place, got myself a reliable used car, and for the first time in years, I could afford to buy groceries without checking my bank balance first. Meanwhile, my family was starting to feel the effects of my withdrawal from their financial safety net. My grandparents' mortgage payments started getting late again. My aunt's electricity got shut off twice in 3 months. My uncle's car situation turned into a whole saga involving public transportation and borrowed rides. My cousin's card debt snowballed into this massive problem that affected his credit score. The best part? They had no idea why their financial stability had suddenly disappeared. They blamed the economy, complained about rising costs, talked about how everything was more expensive these days. Never once did it occur to them that their mysterious benefactor had vanished. I watched it all unfold from a distance, focusing on growing my business while they scrambled to figure out their money problems. It sounds harsh, but honestly, it felt like justice. They'd spent years making me feel worthless while I was literally keeping them afloat, and now they were experiencing what their lives actually looked like without my help. My business kept growing. I landed this huge contract with a regional retail chain to handle all their digital marketing. Then a healthcare company hired me to launch their new patient portal. I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of, working with smart, successful people who actually valued my input and treated me with respect. 2 years later, I was running a legitimate marketing agency with 3 employees and an office space downtown. I'd bought my first house. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Had a reliable car that didn't make weird noises when I started it. Could afford to eat actual food instead of surviving on pasta and canned soup. Update, holy smokes, you guys are invested in this story. Someone asked if I felt guilty about cutting them off financially. Honestly, yeah, especially at first. But then I'd remember how they treated me and realize they were adults who should be handling their own responsibilities anyway. A few people mentioned that my family might have been struggling more than I knew. That's totally possible, but it doesn't excuse the way they talk to me. The next part is where everything comes to a head, and let me tell you, it was better than any movie I've ever seen. Have you ever had a moment where years of patience finally paid off in the most satisfying way possible? The universe has this funny way of bringing things full circle, and boy did it deliver in spectacular fashion. It was at my grandmother's 80th birthday party, where everything finally came together in the most beautiful, chaotic way imaginable. The whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who'd spent years treating me like the family screw-up, while I secretly kept their lives from falling apart. I walked into that party wearing a nice dress I'd actually paid full price for, driving my own car that I'd bought with cash, feeling confident for the first time in years. But here's the thing, they still saw me the same way. My aunt made some snide comment about how I'd finally learned to dress properly. My cousin asked if I was still playing around with that internet stuff instead of getting a real job. They had no clue that my internet stuff was now a 6-figure business with actual employees and real office space. The conversation was going the usual way, them talking about their jobs and accomplishments while barely acknowledging my existence. When my phone started buzzing, it frickin' wouldn't stop. Call after call, text after text. I was trying to be polite and ignore it, but it kept going off like I was running some kind of emergency hotline. Finally, I excused myself and stepped outside to see what was going on. Turns out, the retail chain I'd been working with had just announced they were expanding to 5 new states, and they wanted my agency to handle the entire rollout. We're talking about a contract worth more money than my entire family probably made combined in a year. While I'm on the phone with the client, trying to keep my voice down and my excitement in check, I notice my uncle walking by the window. He's clearly eavesdropping, probably thinking I'm dealing with some kind of crisis or drama. When I hang up and head back inside, he's got this smug look on his face like he's about to deliver some devastating comeback. "Everything okay out there?" he asks loudly, making sure everyone can hear. "Sounded pretty intense, not having money problems, are you?" The whole room goes quiet. Everyone's looking at me with these expectant faces, like they're waiting for me to break down and admit I'm struggling. My aunt actually has this little smile playing at the corners of her mouth, and that's when I decided enough was enough. "Actually," I said, setting my phone down on the coffee table, "that was a client offering my company a $2 million contract." The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. My cousin literally choked on his beer. My aunt's smile froze on her face like someone had hit pause on a movie. "Your company?" my grandmother asked, genuinely confused. So I told them. All of it. How I'd started freelancing while working retail, how I'd built up a client base, how I'd eventually gone full-time and started hiring employees, how I now owned a marketing agency that worked with major companies across 3 states, how I'd been quietly successful for years while they were busy telling me I'd never amount to anything. But then came the real kicker, the part I'd been holding back for years. I pulled out my phone and started showing them screenshots. Bank transfers to the mortgage company for my grandparents' house, utility payments for my aunt's apartment, credit card payments for my cousin's debt, car repair bills for my uncle's Honda. "Remember when your electricity got shut off 2 years ago?" I asked my aunt, scrolling through my payment history. "And it mysteriously got turned back on the next day? That was me. And when your car broke down last spring?" I looked at my uncle. "I paid for those repairs. And your credit card debt that was keeping you up at night?" My cousin was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "I handled that too." The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Everyone was just staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You were all so busy telling me I was a failure, I continued, that you never noticed I was the one keeping your lives from falling apart. For 3 years, I sacrificed my own comfort to help you, and you repaid me by treating me like garbage at every family gathering. My aunt was the first one to speak. But why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to help you, not get credit for it. But after last Christmas, when you told me I'd never be anything special, I decided it was time to focus on my own life instead of fixing yours. That's when the pieces started clicking together for them. My uncle realized his financial troubles had started right around the time I'd stopped helping. My aunt figured out why her utility bills had suddenly become unmanageable. My cousin connected the dots between his credit score tanking and my mysterious absence from his life. The apologies started flowing like water from a broken dam. Everyone was suddenly so sorry, so grateful, so proud of what I'd accomplished. My aunt was crying, talking about how she'd always believed in me. My uncle was shaking his head, saying he never meant anything he'd said. My cousin was going on about how inspiring my success story was. But here's the thing. It was too late. Way too late. Update. The messages I'm getting about this are absolutely wild. Some of you are saying I should forgive them, others are cheering for the revenge. A few people asked if the apologies felt genuine. Honestly, they felt more like panic than actual remorse. The real question is, after years of being treated like garbage, is there any apology good enough to fix that kind of damage? The ending might surprise you, because it's not what you'd expect, but it's exactly what I needed. The aftermath of that birthday party was something else entirely. Within 24 hours, my phone was blowing up with calls from family members, voicemails full of apologies, texts explaining how sorry they were, emails trying to make amends. It was like they'd all suddenly realized they'd been jerks to someone who'd been secretly taking care of them for years. My aunt left this long, rambling message about how she'd always seen potential in me and was just trying to motivate me to reach it. My uncle sent a text saying he was proud of my success and wanted to take me out to dinner to celebrate. My cousin called 3 times, in one morning, talking about how he'd always known I was destined for great things. The thing is, when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them. And for years, my family had shown me exactly how they felt about me. These sudden apologies felt less like genuine remorse and more like panic over losing their financial safety net. I didn't answer the calls, didn't respond to the texts, didn't acknowledge the emails. Instead, I focused on what really mattered. My business, my employees, my actual life. That retail contract I'd gotten the call about during the party? It ended up being even bigger than expected. We had to hire 2 more people and lease additional office space just to handle the workload. 6 months later, I bought a beautiful house in the suburbs with a big backyard and a 2-car garage. Got myself a brand new car. Nothing flashy, just reliable and comfortable. Started taking vacations without worrying about the cost. For the first time in my adult life, I was genuinely happy and financially secure. My family kept trying to reconnect. They'd show up at my old apartment building not realizing I'd moved. They'd call my work number, which my assistant would politely deflect. They sent cards on my birthday, invitations to family events, even showed up at my office once trying to surprise me with lunch. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt or bitter or looking for revenge. I was just done, completely and totally done with people who only valued me when they needed something from me. The final test came when my grandmother got sick and ended up in the hospital. My parents called explaining that she was asking for me, that the family wanted me there. They said everyone missed me and hoped we could put the past behind us. I sent flowers to the hospital with a card wishing my grandmother a speedy recovery. But I didn't go. Not because I didn't care about her, but because I knew exactly what would happen. The family would use her illness as leverage to guilt me back into their lives, and once she was better, everything would go back to the way it was before. My grandmother recovered fully, which I was genuinely happy about, but I stayed away from the family drama and kept building my life on my own terms. 3 years have passed since that birthday party revelation. My business now has 12 employees and clients in 6 states. I've been featured in business magazines, spoken at marketing conferences, and built something I'm genuinely proud of. I have real friends who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who knew me when I was struggling and chose to be with me anyway. Sometimes I run into family members around town. They're always eager to chat, to catch up, to show me pictures of their kids, or tell me about their latest vacation. They act like nothing happened, like we're just family members who've been busy and haven't had time to connect. I'm polite, but distant. I ask about their health, comment on their photos, wish them well, but I don't get drawn into long conversations or make plans to meet up. I've learned that you can't build genuine relationships with people who only respect you when it benefits them. The funny thing is, they're all doing fine now. They learned to manage their money better when their mysterious benefactor disappeared. My aunt got a second job and sorted out her finances. My uncle traded his unreliable car for something more practical. My cousin consolidated his debt and actually improved his credit score through his own efforts. Turns out, they were perfectly capable of handling their own lives. They just hadn't been forced to do it before. As for me, I wake up every morning in my own house, drive my own car to my own business, and work with people who respect and appreciate me. I take care of my finances responsibly, help others when I choose to, and never again let anyone make me feel worthless, while I'm secretly holding their life together. The best revenge really is living well. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I finally learned to value myself the way I deserve to be valued all along. Their mockery didn't destroy me. It motivated me to build something better than they ever imagined I could. And honestly, that's the best possible ending I could have asked for.